Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and peace be with you. I was able to finally finish watching Jordan Peterson's interview of Hamza Yusuf, which was really fascinating to see these two brilliant men from different perspectives come together and have this cordial yet enlightening interview and exchange. Was really, really eye-opening. And I absolutely loved how Hamza Yusuf addressed this part of the exchange with obviously a religious perspective or Islamic perspective. Here it is.
The legacy of human evil, let's say, something personal, but also transpersonal at the same time, right? It's part of the human condition. And it looks to me like without that container, the guilt we have about the arbitrariness of life and the arbitrariness of our privileges can start to become overwhelming. And then it can also become weaponized, which has certainly happened at the present time, and to a dangerous degree. So you can go after people for their privilege, let's say, and they do feel guilty because advantages and disadvantages are sort of parsed out to some degree arbitrarily. And then, they collapse in the face of that onslaught and apologize and retreat. And it just doesn't look to me like that's a good thing at all.
Well, it's not a good thing if you don't have a religious worldview that gives meaning to those situations. For instance, one of the most important aspects of the Quran, I think, is that it really gives answers to these inequities in the world, what some have termed the mystery of iniquity. And the Quran, one of the hallmarks of a believer is gratefulness, gratitude. In fact, the word in Arabic for disbeliever means ungrateful, an ingrate. And so gratitude for blessings, and then patience for trials and tribulations. And so there's many verses in the Quran that talk about that we have raised some of you over others in privilege as a test to show who will be the best in action. What are you going to do with those privileges? How are you going to respond to those tribulations? So if you have a worldview that actually incorporates all of the problems in the world and gives them meaning, then it enables people to look at them in a very different way. Whereas if you remove that, you're stuck with just Marxist resentment and anger and envy.
Yeah. So,
it's especially fascinating to see smart, kind, decent, brilliant minds that still have a hard time understanding their privilege, or at least how they articulate their perspective is interesting to me. I obviously Hamza Yusuf did an amazing job addressing this, that we Muslims understand that it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that picks and chooses how he wants to elevate people, certain groups over others and certain individuals over other individuals. What struck me was how someone as eloquent and as brilliant as Jordan Peterson still didn't understand why groups or certain groups and people are mad at certain people. In this case, for example, about white privilege. Certain groups and races have, privileges that are arbitrary. But I think what people like Jordan Peterson don't understand is what it takes to protect that privilege. What annoys people is for that privilege to be protected. It disadvantages others. Why is it necessary for people like you to have that privilege. If nothing else, if it gives you nothing else, it gives you the benefit of the doubt. It opens certain doors for you. It affords you so many things that you take for granted. I know it. I come from a tribal land, and my tribal privileges afford me so much that I take for granted for going to certain places, doing certain things, getting away with some things without me even asking for it. Yeah, I am the last person who would ever knowingly use my privilege, my tribal privilege, for example. When I go back to my motherland. Yet, it's arbitrary, like he said. It follows me everywhere. So while it's not only white people that have privileges, and that privileges come in many different ways, it could be tribal, it could be race, it could be religion, it could be a simple majority. There are privileges everywhere. It could be able body versus disabled body, gender. It's a cry for justice. And how could you ignore the injustices that are being done to me? How could you just ignore it? Why can't you fight the system? Because it's people that look like you that design these systems and these laws, and it's therefore people like you that can do something about it and help change it, so we can all have justice, equality, and equity. That's what people are talking about. Ignoring it and pretending that it doesn't exist and that it doesn't have anything to do with you is ridiculous and disingenuous.